Um, and here we go. So, welcome everyone. My name is Farhad Dastur. I'm an educator in the psychology department at Kwantlen Polytechnic University in Vancouver, Canada. I'm also the principal investigator of KPU's VR lab. To begin, I want to acknowledge that the 5 campuses of KPU are located on the unceded and traditional territories of the Kwantlen, Musqueam, Katzie, Semiahmoo, Tsawwassen, Kikite, and Kwikwetlam peoples. In the Halkomelem language, the name Kwantlen means tireless runner. In 1981, Grand Chief Joe Gabriel of the Kwantlen First Nation granted our institution, the permission to use the name Kwantlen. And today we speak that name with pride, and we commit to building relationships with all First Peoples based on respect and honor. Today's talk by Dr. Patrick Pennefather is number 2 in our VR speaker series. The plan for these series is to host 1 talk per month on topics that explore the rich possibilities of augmented, virtual, mixed, and extended realities, and to showcase their diverse applications in education, health, art, industry, entertainment, research, and social justice. Our talks are designed to be accessible to all people regardless of prior knowledge, and we will always give ample time for questions and discussion. These talks will be recorded and they'll be posted on our YouTube channel, which you can find at our website, kpuvrlab.com. The VR Lab was founded in 2019, supported by a KPU Creative Capital Fund grant. We have a dedicated space at our Richmond campus, equipped with VR headsets, sensors, cameras, and computers. Members of the VR Lab include students, research assistants, alumni, faculty, practicum students, honor students. Current lab members are Calvin Campbell, Tina Charmchi, Zerlinda Chow, Kieran Dogra, Kayla Garvin, Simi Kaur, and David Murray. If you're interested in a creative collaboration with us, please contact me at farhad.dastur@kpu.ca. I'd now like to hand over the event to Simi Kaur, who will be the moderator for today's exciting talk.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome again to KPU's Virtual Reality Speaker Series. My name is Simi Daluel, and I am a practicum student for the Virtual Reality Lab and also a research assistant with KPU. I would just like to remind everyone that the talk would be recorded today, and if you choose not to be on camera, please go ahead and turn off your camera and mute yourself. After the talk, there would be ample time for everybody to ask questions. If at any time you would like to ask any question, please go ahead and type the question and we will anonymously read it out. So we will keep the questions anonymous, and you can post all your questions in the conversation in the chat box, and I will read them out anonymously. If you choose that you would like to use your mic and ask a question, you can raise your hand, and that's the little icon on top of the screen that says a smiley face and a hand. At that point, I will call out your name, where you can go ahead on camera and unmute yourself and ask your question. Now, with pleasure, I would like to introduce today's talk, The Fear of Mixing Out, Adventures in Mixed Reality Live Productions by Dr. Patrick Pennefather. This presentation proposes an experimental approach to the idea of mixed reality development through a combination of project descriptions, teaching stories, and research initiatives. Dr. Pennefather has mixed realities since his birth in this virtual reality experiment gone wrong. He has designed sound for live and virtual productions. He conducts research at the intersection of real and virtual and teaches hybrid learning environments. He's an assistant professor co-appointed with the UBC Theatre and Film, teaching sound design, mentoring, and conducting research. He's also involved with the Master of Digital Media program, where he has supervised and mentored over 50 client-based digital media projects with Microsoft, EA, Ubisoft game, dance, and theater companies, researchers, and XR development, including AR, MR, and VR. He's a faculty in residence at the Emerging Media Lab at UBC, where he's the principal investigator exploring real-time technologies that merge humans in different locations onto the same virtual background. So now I would like to go ahead and pass it over to Dr. Pennefather.
Thank you, Simi, and thank you, Farhad. And likewise, I am not actually coming to you from one of the wonderful campuses of Kwantlen University. So I too will acknowledge that I am conducting this presentation on the unceded and traditional territories of the Musqueam, Coast Salish, and Stolo people. Where I live, I work, and I play. I'm very honored to be here today. I'm excited because it challenged me to put together philosophy of teaching and research, and to try to tell that story to everyone here present, and for those of you who are watching this later. So, fear of mixing out. You might be wondering why I messed up FOMO on purpose. That fear of missing out and mixing out in terms of fear of missing out on mixed reality is actually quite common. So the reason why I'm calling my entire presentation that today is to, by the end of today, convince, coerce, somehow show you that you are in fact not missing out on anything, and that we will come to a new orientation as to what mixed reality means, as it has predated any virtual reality, any augmented reality, and any extended reality technologies that we have come to know. You'll probably notice I changed my title. I already pivoted. I'm going to pivot this presentation right away by actually making it interactive and asking everyone present to take a moment and become aware of the different types of realities that you are simultaneously a part of right now. Oh, a part of, space part of. I think the autocorrect didn't work, but it might actually make sense here. And please share the different types of realities that you are simultaneously living in the chat if you'd like. I'll give you some examples. Right now, I am watching my phone for a couple of stats in terms of my heart rate to maintain it at a particular pace, as I've been doing for the past number of weeks. I had my iWatch on at the same time. A little bit earlier, I decided to take it off, but at the same time, I was doing some readings on there, and I was testing out the decibel levels around and outside of my space. There is a noisy neighbor today, so I decided to use a specific type of microphone. I can still hear them in the background. You can't because of the mic I'm using. So I'm trying to manage that. I'm sitting here in my studio apartment, which has been converted into an office for teaching. There are lots of things happening simultaneously around me. My wonderful partner just received her doctorate yesterday, and she's making cookies to celebrate, and I benefit from that tremendously. So that's on my mind. There are multiple levels of attention that we are all simultaneously experiencing. So I invite you, because we'll come back to this theme of attention as we start to talk through some of the research I'm doing and the notions of mixed reality, particularly in different technological verticals. So has anyone chatted out some of their simultaneous realities as of yet? I'm nervous to step out of my shared screen, so if you, Simi, if you wanted to share, has anyone shared that in the chat thus far?
Yeah, actually, for Hot Road, I'm in Papa Reality, PR, as I keep partial awareness of what my 10-year-old son is doing. And I would like to add on to that, actually. I am simultaneously thinking of a tea party that is going to happen after this chat. So nice. I'm weird reality, I think.
Yeah, no, that's good. Especially, I mean, if you're starting to already plan which types of tea. So the reason I go here is that you'll notice in some of the research that's coming up, especially in VR, and I know in the context of a VR lab that Farhad and Simi you've talked about and others are involved in. I'm very much concerned with the moment the headset, the before moment of the headset coming on to the head. I'm fascinated with pre, during, and post experiences of VR that do, on some level, involve another type of reality. So our agenda will be to reorient around the possibilities of MR. And then I'm going to make this a little more interactive by allowing you to guide me to choose a presentation topic that you would like to hear more about. So often I'm asked this question, and that question I usually pause and I think about it. In the past, I've tried to give lots of different examples. I try to get people away from definitions of mixed reality with a Microsoft product known as the HoloLens or HoloLens 2 for that matter. And I think it's catching on. I think that I'm not the only one. I think that there are many different types of uh, programming development. There's researchers, there are profs who are really trying to reframe what mixed reality is. Now, you're talking to someone who's been in theater for a long, long time in terms of my live production experience and my love of art. And it's not really one type of reality occurring. There's the staged reality. There's the experience that the audience might be uh, having at the same time that this is going on. And now with technology coming into play, there is so much more happening simultaneously. At times it gets daunting as to where to place attention. So when I'm asked, what is mixed reality? My usual response now is, what isn't mixed reality? And I don't mean to be too cheeky, but in fact, I am. Here are some snapshots of different mixed reality experiences that I've been involved in that I'll go into a little more. On the bottom left of my screen, you'll see a small stage augmented reality application in which you're able to take a mobile device, and in this particular example, it's marker based, which means that if you place your camera over a particular marker, that marker can be anything from a design to a particular shape. This owl on my cup, for example, and it triggers something to occur. In the case here, it triggered a dancer to appear, and that is a captured dancer. There were three that were captured using the technologies of motion capture in a studio, and the team of students that I supervised animated the dancer and gave them, as you can see, a special effects. I will play a video of the small stage application a little bit later for those interested. That's one example of bringing augmented reality or a type of reality that augments your physical or this physical reality. So in that way, it's definitely multiple things happening at the same time. You can take that dancer, for example, and place them anywhere you want in your space, outside, wherever you happen to be when you interact with that application. The top left is a current development that I just completed that I will be now going in to investigate, conducting experimental and usability research. And that is a VR environment in which multiple individuals are can come into VR at the same time. Now you think, okay, great, Patrick, that's multiplayer, right? Well, yes, so here's the catch. Because of the pandemic and because of realizing that not very many people actually had access to a VR headset, we decided to actually create a portal into whoever has a VR headset to guide others through an experience in VR and through their web browsers. In the center is a use case that I'll talk about extensively a little bit later, and that was sustainability in an imaginary world project, and it was integrating research and iPads and triggering sound, which is my other background in craft and sound design. On the top right, you can see a performance that occurred at the National Arts Center with dancer and choreographer Dana Sandrowski and myself. You don't see me in, that's not me with the camera. I was just trying to show multiple realities happening at the same time, because what this was a film shoot with CBC trying to capture a version of the performance, a 7-minute version for TV, for news media. At the same time, however, I was using my device to stream out the shoot to followers on Periscope. For those of you who are ancient and old, like myself and Farhad, you'll know that Periscope was one of the first, along with Meerkat, streaming technologies that really propelled others to come into being. This was before Facebook, this was before Insta, this was before YouTube. And so this was an experiment. And the result of that experiment yielded 948 views of the actual performance that same evening, compared to the 150 that were present in the audience. So this is another way to say that the merging of realities, the mixed realities in performance have been happening for a while, and with technology for a while as well, in terms of myself being embedded in it. The last one, bottom right, was a recent, the most recent co-locating of actors virtually project at UBC in collaboration with the mounting, remounting, reversioning of commentary, I'm going to say, on August Strindberg's Dream Play, which in this case, it doesn't look like much, except the fact that both of these actors are not at all beside each other on a physical stage. They are, in fact, 12 feet apart in physical reality. In virtual reality, of course, they are beside each other, and you can almost see the one actor has their hand close to touching the other actor. And so effects like these were experimented with during that production. I've tried to frame what I do and tried to visualize it a little bit in the last few days in preparation for this presentation, to give you an idea of the breadth of research and teaching that I conduct with mixed reality, and what I'm starting to get more and more comfortable referring to as mixed reality. In the center in which I have located amazing icons from the Noun Project. If you don't know about this, it's a fantastic shared community, and I've promised attribution, and that's why the names of the individuals who've contributed the art are present with every icon that I use. You'll notice that in the center are projects, and that's an important foundational part of my own teaching practice and my teaching praxis, in which I conducted and investigated mentorship in project-based learning as part of my doctorate many years ago. And I'm, as Farhad might know, I'm a bit of a, I don't want to use the word evangelist, but I love project-based learning. I am strongly compelled to investigate it and integrate it into every aspect of teaching that I'm involved in. So usually what triggers a project is some type of problem to solve. This problem, in the case of industry, may be connected to wanting to explore new innovations, such as VR, such as AR, such as MR, on devices as diverse as the HoloLens and many mobile devices, including iOS and Android devices, to be able to handle augmented reality, to mixed theatrical types of experiences like escape rooms that combine a little bit of VR and a little bit of live and acting. So there's always been some type of problem to solve, and those have been core to guiding teams to create. Now, usually what and you'll see the four branches that are coming out of the center with the projects. I have a deep and strong-rooted collaboration with the Emerging Media Lab at UBC. I have developed over time many partners in industry, as well as extending out contacts into the university to find partnership for funding. Yeah, a lot of that funding may come internally at UBC, for example, or we go for external funding. There are several phases of co-construction that occur with projects. I would say that I'm trying to solve a problem that I've noticed in digital project co-construction, especially in this area of XR, so VR, AR, and MR, and that is to develop a curriculum which I piloted this last year in proof of concepts. Now, these proof of concepts were faculty proposed projects that teams of students had to tackle in order to, by the end of it, through iterative prototyping, come up with some type of interactive prototype that was close to what they are wanting to achieve. Now, I say that because the next phase of that has been to integrate with the Emerging Media Lab in order to create that MVP acronym, which is minimum viable product. I use minimum viable prototype because that is more of a reality to me in terms of the product in its semantic language being more of a final thing, an end goal. Whereas a prototype, it can always be improved upon. This is kind of inspired by the gaming industry, in which you would see early releases of games, and we still do, that are not quite complete. They're still tweaking, they're taking user feedback, and then they change those features, they improve the gameplay, they add different levels that reflect that. So for me, that minimum viable prototype is an important concept to wrap my head around and to support students in the development of co-constructed projects. You can see that my outputs are various, and this is important. It's not just important because I'm at a university, and that's part of how my advancement is determined, and that's part of my percentage of research. It's also just because it's important in order to share knowledge, to mobilize knowledge, to share what I and others have learned in the process of co-constructing technology, so that we can support, so that we can inspire, so that we can provoke others to either try something similar, to move the knowledge forward, and most importantly, and you'll see in the top right above research creation, is to openly share, and in a very passionate plea to open source technologies, so that we can all accelerate our understanding of mixed reality generally. You'll see that a lot of the term I use is research creation. It's also a deeply embedded word, especially when it comes to funding. Our national bodies use that term when we choose a project, say for SHRC, or a Social Science and Humanities Research Council grant. We use that terminology to find some type of commonality with others across our nation who are reviewing those applications. I refer to the process of co-constructing any type of digital interactive or digital artifact as research creation. You'll notice below experimental research, because for me, it's not over at the creation phase. And this is something that's important to communicate and establish with students who want to conduct research, with colleagues who don't really understand this thing called VR and why the hell are you doing it. So it's important to establish that we are the process of co-creating a research creation like a VR experience. That is research. And what we do with it afterwards, when we do an increased amount of experimental research, is also research. And that's probably the more familiar research to scientists and those familiar in science, engineering, and medicine, is that experimental research. In design as well, with usability design and usability research. So a lot of that is, if I can boil it down in terms of my own work, it really is about exploring and investigating phenomena that are related to experiencing, say, something in VR. But it might also be to improve that experience for future iterations. So there's a lot wrapped up into this. That was a lot. And then I did like a peek into the projects showing how important they are. And then I was going to stop. And that's been like Wait, how many minutes I've been talking already? That's like 25 minutes. Wow. And I planned that as like a 10-minute intro. It's amazing. So here we go. Now, where would you like me to go with this presentation? And you can use chat or you can speak, and I will just use the clicky mousey thingy and we'll go anywhere where you want me to talk about. So I can talk about previous mixed reality projects. I can talk about current, the most current one that I did, which is the Dream Play, and go into it a little bit more and show you. I can talk about integrating mixed reality into teaching, which is what I regularly do and I'm doing more of. And I can explain what I even mean by that. And I can also talk about what research in mixed reality might look like, and show you, and also talk a little bit more about that. So without me wanting to take the risk of escaping out of my shared view of PowerPoint in presentation view, Simi, would you mind sharing any prompts coming through the chat with me?
Absolutely. And prior to doing that, when we were before talking about the mixed reality, another one of our guests said, "I'm enjoying the flowers blooming in beautiful garden."
Nice.
And now coming back to now, we have mixed responses. So one of our guests says, we would like to study the current MR devs. Another one says, integrating MR into teaching. So we have 2 votes for integrating MR into teaching, 3 votes actually. And then another one for current, and then I vouch for what MR looks like, research in MR looks like. And so there's 2 votes for current MR devs, and then 3 votes for teaching.
Okay.
Integrating MR into teaching. And then another one for what research in MR looks like. So it seems like teaching won, integrating MR into teaching.
So, and I'm sure we'll have more time to go into these, because some questions that you might have of me might fall into that. So why don't we dive into integrating MR into teaching? Oh, wow, it looks like Mr. Teaching. Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit of an example. I probably won't play audio here, but I'll talk through a little bit in terms of what I attempted to do in a sound design class. And I think you're going to get it as soon as I play it. This was my intro. I was using a Snap camera and collaborating with an artist to do some minor tweaks to in Lens Studio for this mask, which was easily activated in my camera. And then I did recordings on Zoom and did a share screen with an audio software to guide students through. And this happened to be close to Halloween. And I explained that it was part of my my mother's culture of Mexico for the El Día de los Muertos. So in this example, it gives you just a tiny example of what I would do both live and I would do pre-recorded video of, in which I would guide students through walkthroughs in character. And those characters had a specific voice, and those characters were also engaged in commentary in terms of what the activity was as we were engaged in doing it. So in this one, a little Reverb never heard any known song or a known song was an example of the use and overuse of reverb for those involved in sound design, and essentially giving them the sound of what it would be like, because I was teaching them about manipulating audio and being able to mess with it to an extreme, and also to pull back and to understand the differences in that. So in this way, I did a live session, and this was followed by a more extensive guide through a specific piece of software that we were using. In
Patrick,
the case of,
just to interrupt, is there a way to hear that? It sounds very, it'd be impressive to hear it.
I think, why don't we compromise, and I'll let you hear this one.
Okay.
Because this is the Teaching Agile Potato, and the Teaching Agile Potato will give you a better idea. That's only if I hit share audio when I hit share screen. Did I have to do that? Most likely. Do you hear it first?
No.
Oh, darn. Yeah, you see, I knew that was going to happen. Okay, so I'm going to have to go back into... Am I still sharing that screen?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. I must have to stop share in Teams, right? And then reshare with audio, most likely.
Yeah, I know that happens in Zoom sometimes.
Yeah, okay, let's try it. So it says share content and, oh, include audio sound.
There we go.
Install driver to share sound. This will only take a few seconds and you'll just have to do it once. Okay.
We're good.
Cross fingers on the no crashy PowerPoint within no crashy Teams. Install the things we all go through.
Check your heart rate on your iPhone, your iWatch.
Now you can hear me, right?
Now we can hear you.
I kept pressing through the buttons. Why is it suddenly throwing me all these buttons? Stop it.
When in doubt, randomly bang buttons.
That's exactly what I was doing. I was enjoying it too. Okay, let's try this share thing one more time. Include computer audio. Oh, now it's going to let me go to PowerPoint presenter view, play the potato agile. Volume. Do we have you?
I'm afraid your time here is going to be occupied with a lot of time about thinking about being agile, okay? What you gotta remember is there's lots of ways to be agile. You can be agile by being flexible, by being responsive, by being iterative, by acting fast, by being able to pivot. There's lots of ways. If you think of agile as less about a project management methodology that is a single methodology, but more of a complex, multi-methodological process.
All right. Do you regret now asking me if I had to hear the potato? You know, comments?
It was a half-baked idea.
Perfect. So this is starting to evolve with me. I'm trying to take on personalities that with these characters in mind, and getting more into teaching these live. This was an example of one that I baked, and it was a pre-record, and then I added it as in between activity, because the gist of this presentation and the various resources that I get was to teach digital media students in my class that there is no single one agile. That yes, there are processes that are similar, but those processes are really dependent on the project that everyone is undertaking together. So that was the gist. It came across. I got a lot of laughter. I got a lot of comments. I got a lot of people responding to me as characters, which changed the dynamic of teaching. And it when I did this, I tried to do this early on in a course. So by third week, when students were just starting to get to know me, just starting to know what they were up against. Just up. So the result was, in some ways, is it broke the ice a lot faster than in previous courses.
Absolutely. And what software did you use to create that?
So I basically did this all. You can see by the res. I did this all in SnapCam, Yeah, on my desktop, and then I did it through a decent mic. Because if you just do it through your laptop, like I did it in previous versions, then you get a lot of noise from the fan. So it's better to use some type of USB mic in order to improve the fidelity of the audio, because that's usually what suffers on a lot of these different types of applications. Yeah. Other questions about that? Moving on, moving back to what research might look like.
There are no questions, but people seem to love the agile potato. A lot of great, so cute, so awesome responses, and I think typing as we go.
So I'm doing more of that. I'll be more than happy to share some of the techniques and strategies. I was inspired to develop my own lenses and using the free Lens Studio, which is not too hard to use. However, I do recommend working with someone versed in 3D because they'll be able to onboard you quick to the language, and they might even want to help develop a mask for you, some type of object. So I persistently, the other aspect that I didn't mention because it's not really teaching, it's more in the meetings. I have a bad reputation of randomly throwing up every type of snap camera character depending on how the conversation is going in a meeting. And I, like many of you, have to partake in many meetings, and I know we all got zoomed out pretty quick, and it's not like that's about to change. So that was a way for me as well to show my complete enraptured attention to what was going on in the meeting. Okay, maybe I'm joking a little bit with that comment, but it's all about timing. You got to time those things in because, you know, I've done some of them where they weren't appreciated, but that's the risk we take.
There seemed to be a request from one of our guests. It says, can you please play the audio from the first example?
Oh, I'll try. Yeah. Let's see if it works.
And we will go into Ableton, and I will show you the devastating effects you can have with reverb. I will entitle this little one, "A Little Reverb Never Hurt a Known Song." Well, that couldn't be farther from the truth in this case, because what we are going to do is first play the song mangled with the reverb before telling you what the beginning part of this song is. Reverb has lots of uses, which we'll go over in a moment. But first, have a listen to what the devastating power of reverb can do.
Okay, it was a short clip, but yeah, so in that particular case, I played a known song, and that known song was Queen, it was Bohemian Rhapsody, but I had mangled it so much and to such a degree using just reverb that nobody could guess what it was. So it was a bit, it was also involving that aspect of interaction with the students and getting them to think about how much something as simple as reverb extending the duration of a note when really pushed to an extreme can completely transform any piece of music. Was that helpful?
Yeah, our guest said, awesome, thank you.
No worries. So let's jump into a little bit of research. And all right, I'll play the audio now that I can, Farhad. There are two pieces that are being shown here. One was with the Gear VR. Yeah, look at that, putting the phone on your head. How strange. And the other was using the HTC Vive, two separate research initiatives with different intents. The first was Alice in Wonderland on the Gear VR headset and simultaneously played with someone guiding a person in VR through an iPad. The second one was in collaboration with SIAC at the School for Interactive Arts and Technology, exploring this somewhat ephemeral and evasive effect of awe that is experienced by astronauts when they are looking upon the Earth from up above. And each of those projects had their own intent. The first one, any guesses who the target might have been for? The one with Alice in Wonderland, and you're guiding someone in Alice in Wonderland, and one user is on an iPad, and they're guiding this second user through some type of labyrinth to get to this core Alice story. Any thoughts? Who the targets might have been? It's not obvious when you see it. Yeah. So that was working with colleague Dr. David Kaufman at SFU, and an initiative that is still going, I believe, called Age Well. And that was to create different types of digital experiences that allowed intergenerational collaboration. And so David then took that artifact that my students and I had co-constructed and created a research with families that wanted to connect at a distance with their older adult relations over VR and an iPad. Kind of crazy, but at the time, there was a sharp increase in the number of older adults using VR headsets. So it was a whole rich area for David and the research team from SFU to explore. Any questions on that one specific?
We don't have questions so far, but we
Sure.
do have a guest saying playing Myst in VR. Now that's an idea.
Totally. That's great. Yeah. The second one was the overview effect, which if you look it up, and feel free to look it up now, by the way, because I can't see what you're doing. And remember, we talked about mixed realities. So if you look up the overview effect, you'll understand the context of that VR experience. It was also exploring that sense of awe for first-time users in VR. And that's another really interesting area of research for VR, is that sense of wonder that so many people still have when they experience different VR experiences. So it was not focused necessarily on gaming, and the reason why I'm referring to that overview effect as mixed is that there was an entire preparatory period to calm down the user before they put on the VR headset. There is a culmination of that, and then after the experience, they were taken to a lounge area to decompress and to chill out. And so the entire experience for an individual lasted about half an hour, and the VR experience itself was about 7 minutes. So you can see there's also a growing field of inquiry and experimentation with providing individuals pre and post experiences of virtual reality. So that's some of the breadth of research that I've conducted. It's extended. You see this Carnival at Mixed Reality, which was the entire event was actually research. And how I got away with that with ethics is fill in the blank. If you want that story, I can tell you. But really, this was an installation-based work that had rotating audiences. And Farhad, if you are wondering, and others, yes, it was pre-COVID. So we didn't have to get permission on the bottom right. If you see all those people, they're so close. Isn't that weird now? We're looking at these photos and we're just, why are they so close to each other? What's wrong with them? I actually showed this to one of my students, and their immediate response was, where did you do this? How did you get away with no masks? It was wow. Crazy, but you can see different layers of interaction. What we were actually investigating was the roaming itself. Where did people navigate their attention? How much time did certain individuals place on actually experiencing certain mixed reality experiences that were there? And some were, isolated. Others were highly social. You can see the ones with the piano that was triggering a sequence of events to occur, and it was a game on the piano that I supervised 2 students from SFU on, and people started to join in the fun. They started to get into just playing the instrument together, and at one point there were 5 people on the instrument, and it had nothing to do with the experience at all, but it was more of a social connection. So we were exploring that social connection and the affordance of mixed reality events and how we can improve upon social connection, how we can find moments within an entire structured evening to motivate people to share the experiences of that they were having in the moment. These are the more recent ones. I would say, not really actually, now that I look at the slides, the bottom right one for sure. I'm going to be continuing to develop the technology of co-locating virtual actors, except they're literally not going to be just actors now. I'm going to be working on technology that is, you've probably seen in Teams. We have that functionality in Teams. We have that functionality now in Zoom, which is to place people from different camera locations on the same screen within a common image. I'm pushing that technology using the Open Broadcast System, OBS, which is a phenomenal tool, and working with a team to develop a more creative and interactive approach to that, in which certain actions that people take on the screen will inform what happens to that image. So that's going to be an exploration this summer in mixed reality. Above is an ongoing improv bot working with UBC Medicine and a close colleague, Dr. Claudia Krebs, from cellular and physiological sciences, in which we, for some reason, I don't know why medicine students, but Claudia thought this is a great problem to solve. We need to support students in the practice of developing skills of speaking improvisationally, without scripts, speaking at random. And so this artificially intelligent, I'm going to put that in quotes because it's more, as many of you probably know, machine learning algorithms, to train someone to be able to practice and to train the bot itself to respond. This is an ongoing project. I would say it's in a bit of a flux stage now, because we've learned a lot from the research we've conducted on probably a population of how many? Over 200 students these last 2 semesters. So lots of data here, lots of rich data that we are super excited about continuing on to inform. And here we go back to my original map, to inform future development, but also to report on the experiment itself in whatever iterative state it was at. What did we learn? What phenomena emerged from that, especially in this area of communication and the practice of communication skills? Upper left was a beautifully complex project that I love to talk about, and not because I enjoyed it, and not because it was so different, because it was essentially teaching students who were training to be helicopter repair mechanics. Yeah, that's a rotor. And you get to play with a rotor, a moving one, up close without injury. This was a huge collaboration with BCIT. And what we learned through this project, and what I've talked about and written about, and this goes back to the mobilization of knowledge, is the importance, and many of you know this, but not everyone knows this. And at the Emerging Media Lab at UBC, there are a lot of faculty who come in and they say, they're earnest and they're lovely, and they want to create something for students and for other faculty. And the first question is, which other faculty, and will they actually integrate that into their courses? And usually the answer is, I don't know. So then we take a step back, and this was the Holocopter project, and we ask the question, and we start to develop the needs requirements by working with faculty from the moment of inception to the prototypical phase. So lesson learned on this project, now probably 2 years old, even though I kind of knew this before, but it was really affirmed in this, is we need to integrate all the stakeholders in the room when we're starting a project out. And we also need to be very, very aware of a pattern historically with new technologies, and it's no different for immersive technologies, of sometimes institutions being overzealous in wanting to inform what technologies faculty should use. So this was a really good lesson in that, because there was a lot of resistance. And it ended up being integrated and investigated as a teaching and learning tool by my close colleague, James Rout, and who is, I think AVP of technology and learning at BCIT. So really interesting. Finally, bottom left is a Van VR app, which is now in process of research has been conducted on it. And it's essentially a VR lab using specimens that came from other humans. Now, it's important, this was all a photogrammetry project, but what we learned in this are all the ethics involved in that. And what we learned, because we were in process and I was going to work with Dr. Krebs and her team in being supported by eVentures at UBC, another way to mobilize through venture and startup. And we realized that there were too many ethical dilemmas that we all had, just to be clear, because there are lots of anatomy type of applications out there, especially in VR, that actually don't care where the specimens come from. But it created a lot of tension with everyone. And the research that we ended up conducting with students is whether or not they actually cared about that. We were trying to explore that phenomena of interacting with a specimen, not knowing what it is, and being extremely detached from an individual. And the A/B testing, the B testing would have been giving students all of that knowledge. How did it change their learning? This is what we wanted to openly explore with this project, and it's ongoing right now. So those are some. I will now go back to here. Questions so far, or I can talk about other stuff.
So far, nobody's typing, so I believe I'll give it a few more seconds.
Sure.
I feel like questions coming up.
Yeah, and I can weave around. I can go into a little bit of previous mixed reality projects to give people even a clearer idea of why I use that word, and I think most people are understanding it. Sustainability in an imaginary world is a really good example early, because this is probably 4 years old now with colleague David Maggs, who's now working on the east coast of Canada in Newfoundland. And this involved audio, part of my research, and the triggering of audio using beacon technology. And the reason we were triggering it was to be able to tell stories depending on where people roamed in a space. And where people decided to roam also led them to different types of rooms, these little rooms that gave them experiences and a narrative as to what was actually happening in the room, and how it I'm trying to find the words, sorry, how it was informed by issues of sustainability. So that's one previous example. The other one was working with a small stage, and I played the application before, and I'll show you again. Now you can actually see it a little bit in action. So you could just say, Patrick, this is augmented reality, right? Why are you calling it mixed reality? And the reason I did is that the end result, the end use case for this application, this augmented reality application, was in simultaneous use in a live performance of dance in a public space. So it was outdoors on Robson Street, Robson and Butte. And part of what we were interested in creating was a way for audiences to take the dances home with them that they experienced in the live production. So what followed every performance were instructions for individuals who were present to go up to a QR code and immediately download the free application, and then they could take the dance home with them. So that's another example of this extension of the reality of a live performance that is no longer limited to the physical stage, that it can exist beyond that and on different stages, especially with VR. So this project led to multiple types of outputs as well that I mentioned earlier, including publication in a chapter on media and performance. And we are continuing to evolve this technology this summer. So this is an ongoing relationship and partnership that's been developed with the company Small Stage for the past 3 years on really attempting to understand how technology can be leveraged for the performing arts. I have some evidence of Small Stage's success. And are you ready for this? While many, many companies, as we know, their doors have been shuttered. My close colleagues at Bard on the Beach just announced, sorry, we are not going live again for a second season. It's very sad, very distressing for the community of live performance, theater and dance included. And Small Stage 4 weeks ago, just as the variant started to increase, and just prior to that, they were able to do a live performance at the Wall Center and had permissions because it was not in a public space. The dancers were in giant domes, completely protected, and the audiences were protected from them. All the aspects of social distancing were respected. People had to wear masks. It was a recreation of the stage, and part of it was because of demonstrating the capacity to integrate technology and explore it in previous years in public spaces. So I'm very excited to be part of and to contribute in this way in terms of service as well and research to communities that really need this right now. The one that was at the Carnival, and I've got these great collaborators, and Farhad knows Bernard Riquet, and his students are just amazing in terms of the work they're doing with virtual reality and immersion and aspects of mapping the body. This particular one was demoed at the same Carnival of Mixed Reality that I mentioned earlier, and it included Connect, which are essentially ways to capture the body through camera, and recreated them as these particles. And we've written about this. John Dinoyer Stewart, who is really the brainchild behind this, very brilliant, currently completing his PhD at CIET at SFU. This was a way for people to connect in VR and not in VR in a live space, and connecting through virtual touch. Really interesting, especially in these times. During COVID last year, we actually remounted this at a French event in town called Recto Verso through the Laval conference, in partly funded and supported by them. This project has had a lot of life, including the culmination of a paper that I was humbled to participate in, that was received at SIGGRAPH in 2020 last year, and part of the conference presentation there, and then moved on into MIT's Leonardo Journal, which is really a phenomenal journal at a high tier for interactive technology and art. So I wanted to mention Body Remixer for sure before we move back to the map and questions, or map or questions, or both. I'll whisper now. Simi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. There seems to be, okay. So one of our guests, no, actually one of our VR Lab members says, I like the map. And there seems to be no questions so far.
So I have not a question, but more of an observation, because I'm teaching Patrick on Monday.
And it just occurred to me that what you've done here is really fascinating. And I wonder if it can be adapted to teaching. And if in fact you do this with your classes, do you pause in your lecture and give them these 4 paths and say, where shall we go in our teaching now?
Every single class in September.
And is it just majority rules, or do you try to hit even the ones that maybe only a few people select? Like, how do you integrate that?
Yeah, I tend to do the voting system on Zoom. So I'm pretty much a heavy duty Zoom user and early adopter, actually pre-COVID. So I use a lot of the features there for voting. And then I do screen sharing as well for anonymous use on Miro, because I'm a heavy Miro user as well. So those are some of the ways I do it. But what was interesting in the past year is there's been an increase in the number of responses, because some people just don't know, or they may not know enough as to a direction they want to go in, or they're just completely open. They're like, yeah, whatever, man, you choose. Yeah, but I do believe that it's important to ask and to stop and to interact and find as many moments as we can for interaction, and it's not easy. But I
imagine another way to handle this is to use breakout rooms and have the students self-select which pathway they want to go down. You might have guideposts along there. You can't necessarily be in all of them simultaneously, but you could pop in, or you could have your Mr. Potato Head avatar to be their guide.
Time's up.
But I mean, imagine that you're teaching one class, but essentially you're teaching 4 dimensions in the class at the same time. It's
nice ideas. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, and now with this, so my current fascination is with real-time technologies and trying to integrate those, not just in teaching, in performative environments, and sometimes in performative teaching environments. So the example of the digital dream play, I thought I would give all of you just the visceral view of it through this video. Essentially, what you see here describes the technology really well. Yes, we use green screens. You can superimpose whatever you want on them. Tom Schultz, who's a colleague at UBC and directed Dreamplay, is in the computer screen. Actually, I wasn't able to, on my camera, capture him far right, but he's in the same physical space, but just to the right. And so in this example, this is all that I captured. And this describes a little bit of what's happening. Yeah, so we're giving the illusion of presence, co-located presence, using OBS, and creating whatever environment we want within where the actors can be. The green screen was important in this particular case, but we didn't, I've done experiments without it as well. So it's not an absolute dependency. But this is what we did, and the technology we used on 2 different cameras to bring the actors together into the same virtual background. And this, you can see the multiple uses of this. And so we're going to continue to explore this technology. You notice the full bodiness of it. That was important for us as well to explore, because originally this was going to be solely in every one of the 13 actors involved in each one of their homes. We were going to give them a kit, a green screen kit with, and then Tom had a brilliant idea and said, hey, we're a university. Do we have to follow the same guidelines that everyone else does for a live production? And the answer was no, because we're a learning institution. And so we took advantage of that, although we had to have everyone 12 feet apart when they were actually performing. And you know, it was a solution at the time, and it's something that is going to contribute to further development this summer.
We also have a guest that is curious about the current projects. And they say, as a mixed media artist, I find all the live performance applications amazing.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. And this is one of the current projects that's going to be in development further. Part of that, and it's important to say this again, and I think I did with that idea of open sharing and open sourcing. If anyone here wants to play with the build that my students and I co-constructed, along with full documentation on how, we also used Stream Deck, which was an external controller. I'll try to put it up here without crashing my computer. There it is, Stream Deck. There's many other different types. Blackmagic has the ATEM Mini, which I recommend as well, to give stage managers physical control of what was happening, because this was all streamed to YouTube, and it involved lighting, it involved sound through QLab, which is a performance playback software, which also had to run through OBS and controlled via another computer with another operator who had to be given goes by the stage manager through a headset. You can see that bit of a challenge. And it was being streamed. There were 13 actors. They had to be called. All safety had to be in play. You can start to imagine the complexity of doing this, even in some ways more so than a live production, because of this all of these added elements. Mics had to be placed in the space to hear the actors. So there was lots going on, and what I wanted to say is that there are 3 companies now, Pi Theatre being one of them, as well as the Vancouver East Cultural Centre, that they all expressed interest in playing with the technology, which makes me extremely happy because, as we all know, being at universities, that mobilization of knowledge, for me at least, is in some ways even more satisfying. The fact that someone wants to use the technology and play it and develop it, that's huge for me. And that's part of my research mandate. So again, anyone wanting to play, let me know and we'll figure out. We're just doing some fine tuning on the documentation, and I can send links. Yeah. And that was it.
Awesome. We also have another guest, and they say, thank you, Dr. Pennefather, for a fascinating talk. I would love to learn more about the piano improvisation in MR or XR. They say, pardon me, I need to go to my next research meeting now.
No problem.
But then I promise them that I will ask it, and then they can look up the recorded version.
Yeah, for sure. So that the piano improvisation, I would have to dig around a little bit more for those files, but I'm happy to post them. I just have to get permission from the other 2 creators, Leo and Vlad, who were both from CIET at the time. And it was actually a really hard to solve game. It was a puzzle where you had to hit precise notes to solve a narrative that was occurring. And what you didn't see was a big screen in front of the piano, and that was running through Unity, and specific notes played at a specific duration would propel the narrative forward. So it was less about playing and more about the piano as instrument in order to move a story forward and to solve a problem that was being presented by the developers. Yeah.
Awesome. Another one of our guests says, honestly, that sounds amazing. I would love to keep in contact.
For sure. Yeah, and my email is there. Let me know, and also for anyone present, do let me know if you'd like to play with that OBS build. The only thing I want to know is, by the end of summer, did you use it? How did you use it? And to keep that that momentum of sharing ongoing for it, because it's the first of a number of real-time technology tools that I'm going to start to publish and make available openly. Yeah. All right, any tough questions about reality?
So a guest writes, would you mind to suggest some softwares or programs we can start making AR?
Yes, and Kayla, yes, of course, you're in a simulation. Yeah, although maybe it's my simulated self telling you that. Maybe this is a pre-record. Did you see that viral video that went? I actually started to play with it I copied someone else's idea, but in teaching, this person, I'm trying to remember the guy's name. He look it up on YouTube. Look up person fakes their presence on Zoom with pre-recorded videos, and he used software that was not open source. I think it was Ecamm software. You can do the same thing with OBS, free. Essentially, he did transitions to different states of him being pre-recorded on mute, just kind of nodding his head and
Yeah,
and
I've
agreeing.
seen that. I've
You've
seen that. The one thing it really reminds me of, though, is the technology out there. I think it's called deepfake, that allows
Oh
people
my God, yeah. Whoa.
to create like actual videos that look somewhat realistic of like made up people talking about completely fake things. And I'm not sure if like you're like a fan of sci-fi TV series, but one show
You could say that. Yeah.
that I'm really interested in right now is For All Mankind on Apple TV Plus, and
Oh, I
it's
haven't seen that one yet. I really want to see it.
yes, it's amazing. It's basically like an alternate history, but at the
Oh,
same time they have like clips of like Ronald Reagan and people talking and saying things that they've never said before.
oh yeah.
Everything's
I
being
gotta see it.
shown in like VHS quality. You
Uh,
can't tell that it's entirely made up, and it's like amazing but terrifying at the same time.
It is. Yeah, it's a revisioning of history right there. Yeah, wow. I'm gonna check it out. I'm a huge sci-fi fan. In fact, probably seen every single Doctor Who. Yes, even episode 1 of season 1. Uh,
Oh, gee.
and yeah, like I started to binge watch Doctor Who last summer, because I'd been a fan of the newer ones even more than the older ones. And Fringe, I love Fringe. I'm always gonna love Fringe. I need to find Fringe again on one of the channels. I don't know where Fringe is. Shot
I've
mainly in Vancouver.
I've heard of Fringe, but I don't think I've ever gotten around to seeing it. Personally, I'm a huge Star Trek fan myself, but
Oh,
I'll just
yeah.
leave that there before I co-opt the conversation or what I mean.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Software's program, you can start to make AR. Tons. I'm going to say first that it depends on what you are willing to learn and how you're willing to learn it. Because I find that, so for example, I could say, yeah, just Unity 3D for sure, man. It's a great game engine. It's awesome. You can do AR with it. You can integrate it with ARKit, all this stuff, right? But really, the right answer is to say you need to start doing the research on what's available, but also what's being supported for your learning and what makes it like, because there's huge communities. I'll give you an example. Last summer, I did this daunting thing, and it was project-based for a lot of content that I created for an edX course. And it was to support people going back to work and reinventing themselves during COVID. And it's a free edX course if you want to take it. And it essentially it takes design thinking strategies and tools and applies them to whatever work you no longer had back in June of last year. It was very successful in the way that, not so much because edX has tiers of, well, if you pay money, you get certified. But if you don't want to be certified, then it's free. And so everyone went for the free, which for me is a success. And what ended up happening is I was getting a lot of responses back based on the learning resources that I pointed to. More people, they were like, yeah, that's great, Patrick. Great, thanks, great. Now about this resource list, yeah, I found that, and they were starting to give feedback on who was supporting other people and who was not. A really good example of that is if you want to learn video editing software, most people will go to Final Cut because, it's industry standard. I would definitely recommend to all of you because A, it's free, 2, it's powerful, 3, it is the industry standard on lighting, and that is DaVinci Resolve by Blackmagic. Huge support, everything free until you tier up, of course, but you don't really need to with the basic features that you have. So that's an example that I wanted to share as my long answer, Ivy, because you need to look at all of the resources available. Now, the two leading engines for immersive technologies are Unreal and Unity. Do you need to know C# to do Unity? It's going to help you hang out with a C# coder. That's going to help you even better. Do you want to learn Unreal? Well, it's a different language, and some say more complex with C++, but you will learn an industry standard tool for visual effects and real-time technologies and film making with real time. That will be the domain, I would say, of Unreal. The domain of Unity has been more over the years. Both of them intersect at games, so to be clear, and as well as other things. But Unity has been more about like games and mobile games, and their investment in educational resources has far surpassed Unreal over the years, and Unreal is catching up. And I have good news, is they're really accelerating it. So the other thing I'm going to say is it depends what you want to augment in when you say, I want to use AR. So start from that as your use case. What do I want to be able to do? And then that will guide you to the right tool to use.
All right, we also have Kayla, who's part of the team of KPU VR Lab, saying, if you have an iPhone, there's a built-in app, Reality Composer, pre-installed on all newish iPhones. Also source if you really hate yourself.
So, I really want to try. I haven't tried Source yet. Is it really hard? Is it like steep? It's like learning curve.
I mean, if like you already know how to like make maps and stuff in Source, it's literally just a plugin. But like Source itself is built on technology that's at this point almost 30 years old. So how to keep it running is beyond me.
Yeah, and there are a shout out to colleague Vivian Chan, who Farhad knows as well, and Vivian has been on LinkedIn quite a bit with her new company Next. Is it Next Tech AR? I'm thinking it's Next Tech AR, and they have an AR application out there now that allows you to actually live stream using augmented reality. I was going to talk about future trends, but that's one of them. The real-time technology of augmented reality is coming, and this is we've been doing it in VR for a while, very clumsily, somewhat successfully, but now it's going to be you're going to have the ability, and I'm going to be trying it, by the way, in September. Farhad, pay attention. I'm going to be doing live streaming of my teaching for those who want to in augmented reality. Why? Because I really love this idea, similar to what I showed with the dance augmented reality, of bringing in a character, a dancer, a teacher into your own home, into your own reality. Now, maybe some of you are like, whoa, I like the profs on the screen. That's where they live. But anyway, I'm excited about exploring that. Yeah, thank you. Next Tech. See, it always confuses me with some of the names of these tech companies where they, couldn't you have done 2 T's? Next Tech. But no, they've got to no, we're going to merge the T because we're going to be creative and mess with me. Okay. Yeah. How are we doing with time? Are we wrapping more?
We've got about minutes, but what is time?
Yeah, inaccessibility is absolutely right, Kayla. This was my motivation last year to, I love VR. I hate how inaccessible it is to most people still. I hate that it's still expensive for many people to get into it. But it's not just that. It's also, I don't know. I love the Oculus Go. Does anyone know why I love the Oculus Go? It's not because it was fantastic. It wasn't 6 degrees of freedom. it was light on my head. It's the only headset that's lasted longer than 20 minutes on my head for one sitting. We still have a lot to go, a long way to go for comfort factor. In terms of UX, which we didn't really talk about and I love, that's one of the biggest obstacles still for us as designers, because, you know, unless you're working with engineering, you're probably not going to get into designing your own VR headset. But for us as designers, it's important to communicate that persistently to manufacturers. Otherwise, we will never be able to create long-form experiences for those individuals in which maybe we want to have a long-form experience without causing someone damage. Yeah.
We missed a question in between. Well, not really a question, but one of our guests says, thank you. Too bad I don't have an iPhone. I believe this was a response to the pre-installed built-in app for Reality, the Reality. So she does not have an iPhone. Do you guys have any suggestions?
Yeah, there's probably going to be different types of AR builders on different types of Android and other types of devices. So so investigate what you have first, and then do that, like I mentioned earlier, do that use case of what do you want to do with what you have? Can you do with what you have, or do you need to upgrade to do what you want to do? Because most likely a newer camera is going to be what's required in order to capture depth. And that's why the new iPhones do that, because they have the 3-camera system that captures X, Y, and Z. And it's that Z that we're starting to need in order to really pull off augmented reality and capture in 3D. So I hope that helps. And I think it's, yeah, absolutely, it's processor. I think that I like this question of accessibility, and I'm feeling more positive about it. It's starting to grow in different industries. There's more attention being paid to creating what was, I think we've all heard, universal design principles that is now becoming interchangeable in a good way with inclusive design experiences. Inclusive of whom? We're so trained in different design disciplines, especially in UX, to target a demographic. And I think since last year, I'm happy to say, since the last summer, it's been expanding, right? Now, we're no longer constrained to think of perhaps typical personas that we have when I started, probably in jumping in this field of UX, I'd say 10 plus years ago, where most of the photos were of white male user personas, female white user personas, and it's shifting, and it's fantastic that it's shifting. So part of that access, I feel, is tied into universal design principles and inclusive design. And I'm happy to be part of some of them. I didn't talk with you about them yet. One of them is NDA, and I can tell you that it's with Real Wheels Theatre, which is a theater company that creates theater with and for people with disabilities. That's one example. I just feel there's a lot of promise there. And I think that different industries are responding in different ways to adapt. That adapting takes time. So we also have to both be patient, but also impatient is okay sometimes. It's okay to demand for these inclusive designs. I think it's time. I think we've waited long enough.
I would also like everybody to know that what Dr. Pennefather was mentioning earlier, the Next Tech AR team, the website for HOT has mentioned it in the comments. So it's spelled as nextchar.com in case anybody would like to go look. And then Kayla says one of the biggest problems I've had with XR technologies is just how inaccessible it can be. It's whether too expensive or too cumbersome for everyday practical use. The future is here, it's just not equally distributed. And I think it's really important to push to make these aiding technologies as accessible as possible, even if it doesn't enter everyday use. And it's just not the camera, but the processing power, having accessible representation. And the way I see it, we're sitting on a gold mine, but it won't be of any use if it isn't valuable to anyone.
Mm. Cool.
I think I already answered that, but yeah.
So it is 4:30, and in respecting our speaker who has given so generously of his time and energy and humor, I think it's probably a good idea to wrap things up. Were there any last burning questions or comments anyone had?
I'd like to thank you for coming to my TED Talk. That's really good. Yeah. What does the TED stand for? It must be an acronym.
Who's
it's actually wait, is that a joke?
It's a joke.
Okay.
Yeah, I was being snappy.
Oh, yeah.
I was being snappy, but but there is a point there. There is a point. Why are you calling it TED still? Okay, I'll let that go. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Cool.
Patrick, this has been absolutely brilliant, and you have touched on so many topics so seamlessly, and very diverse topics, and that's a real gift. I can tell that you are a very authentic educator. Your students who encounter you are very fortunate. Thank you for sharing your time with us today.
You're very welcome.
And
thanks for having me and putting up with me and listening for so long.
Absolutely.
Yeah. At least 6 people lasted. That's good.
Well, and of course it'll live on, right, in the recorded version, and who knows where that goes and who that inspires.
It's true.
I'd love to announce the next talk, which will be next month, but we don't yet know who the speaker is. We're in negotiations with several people. But I think people are getting a sense of just how exciting and accessible these talks are, and you certainly rose to that challenge and that bar, Patrick, so thank you for that again. And thanks to all of our attendees today for your really thoughtful questions and commentaries. Thank you to Simi for moderating so brilliantly. This was her first time doing it, and I know she was a little bit nervous, but she did brilliantly.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So
Thanks,
with
Simi.
that, I encourage everyone to go outside into the real reality, get some real sun, some real oxygen, and enjoy your weekend, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers and the sons and daughters of mothers. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Farhad.
Absolutely. Thanks, Patrick. Okay, Simi, I'm going to stop recording, and then we'll upload this. Great. Any comments you had?
Do you want me to stop recording?
Yeah, could you do that?